Well, hello, friends. Mark Holmes here with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo. And as always, thank you guys for watching, commenting, and subscribing to the Joe Boo Sports Report because without you guys, well, this just does not work. How you doing, Kevin? Welcome to the Joe Boo Sports Report. And, man, as always, I want to thank everybody for showing up on a Monday night. Man, I got to tell you. It is crazy. Now, the NFL, it may be the offseason, but of course, plenty of stuff is always happening, especially with our Dallas Cowboys. First of all, let's go ahead and get away from the Cowboys for a moment. Reuben Foster. Reuben Foster. Wow. I cannot wait. The volume is low. Let me turn it back up a little bit more. Hopefully, is that better? Hopefully, that's a little bit better. Reuben, excuse me, Reuben Foster. Dude, what are you thinking? Reuben Foster, domestic violence. Now, if anybody hasn't learned from Zeke Elliott, that you don't have to be necessarily guilty or found guilty by a court of law to get suspended. Anybody after Zeke Elliott who gets busted for domestic violence, and I'm going to say this, anybody who does domestic violence is an idiot. We need to stop all this. And believe me, I believe anybody who is guilty of it, boom, they should be punished. But I don't believe the NFL should be the one handing out the punishments. But be that as it may, he gets busted with all of the other people who have been in San Francisco. All of these players in San Francisco who have literally been busted for domestic violence, drunk driving, can't stay off the weed, and so forth. Now, with Zeke Elliott, he was never charged, arrested, convicted, or anything else, but he got 6 games. So I can't wait to see what the NFL does with Reuben Foster. And for everybody who before was saying, we shouldn't have drafted Taco. Yeah, I'm glad we didn't didn't draft Reuben Foster. Now, some other news: Emmanuel Sanders, wide receiver with the Denver Broncos. Which when you say wide receiver with the Denver Broncos, they don't get a whole lot of catches because they really don't have a quarterback. Apparently, he is done in Denver, and he would like to be a Dallas Cowboy. Well, he's got about an $8 million a year contract with a cap hit of about 10.9. Had about 50 some catches last year, 30 years of age, not a spring chicken and everything else. So it'll be interesting if that contract is negotiable and if the Cowboys is actually going to be interested in that. Again, you get a lot of players that say they're interested in going to Dallas, but, does that necessarily mean it's going to happen? Not necessarily. Wow. Now, here's what I really want to get into. Charles Haley, one of only 2 NFL players with 5 rings. Him and Tom Brady. So in a way, I guess we could say, hey, we're glad Tom Brady didn't get another one because then he would be the only one with 6. Charles Haley. Charles, I have personal experience with. We, believe it or not, he's only a year older than I am. We both went to JMU. Now, we played on the same football team, although Charles will say he played, I was on the team. Be that as it may, Charles Haley is very vocal, very playful. But one thing Charles Haley cannot stand is losing. Losing to him is like you stole something from his mother. Charles would leave everything on the field. That's why his body is screwed up the way it is. That's why he's got plates in his back, and rods and everything else. Because Charles gave it all. And if you are not giving it all, Charles doesn't have anything for you. Period. So Charles went on record talking about Taco. Yeah, Virginia Finest. Yeah, JMU Dukes, man. Love my JMU Dukes. Runner-up national championships champions this year, national champions last year. But Charles has gone on record talking about Taco. And he said, Taco, his knowledge in football is lacking. And he's not sure if he loves the game, which is that's the case with a bunch of players. There's a lot of guys out there that are great in football, but they don't necessarily have that desire to be all in on football. It's just the way it is. It's just like, you have your job. Doesn't mean you love your job. It's a way to get paid. You're going to go ahead because you got bills to pay, but you're not necessarily be all in and doing as much as you really can do. Now, volume is way too low. Let me turn it up a little bit more for you guys. Sorry. Hopefully, is that loud enough? Because it's really beaming in my ears. And I can actually hear Michael over there with the sink with the water running and the dog barking upstairs here in my headset. So hopefully that's loud enough. Guys, if you just joined in, I turned it up a little bit more. So double check and let me know if it's still too low or not. But Charles is basically saying, Taco came on as the year went through. He worked with him and got better, but he's not sure on his football IQ. And that may be the case because I looked at him. I looked at him and said, he's a guy with a lot of raw talent. Can you let the dogs out, Mike? But he still needed to learn the moves and things like that. So there's a lot of things that are going on that, the subtleties in football. Everybody in football is, this close together. It's being able to develop that little instant, that little flinch that ends up making the difference of being a sack or just being an everyday guy. So Charles says he's got a long ways to go, and hopefully it's just a matter of he hasn't learned it and he will learn it. Forgive me for the dogs. My wife is probably coming in, so of course they're all excited. So he's raw, but again, he didn't have that much time playing last year. So, people are talking about T.J. Watt and everything else and how well he did. But here's the reality. T.J. Watt played twice the snaps of what Taco did. So we'll have to see where that goes. Now, back to Charles again. Charles Haley, with football, does not like to lose. He will cuss you out. Now, I'm going to tell you a story. This is a true story about Charles Haley. In practice, Charles hit a man so hard in practice, we're talking about practice, that he made him a cheerleader. That is a true story. A running back who I'll leave nameless, in practice, gave Charles a good block, knocked Charles down. Charles got up, dusted himself off, and he said, I'm going to F you up. And we're talking about practice in his own teammate. Charles gave the man a hit like I have never seen before in my life. Clean hit, knocked him out. Carried off in a stretcher, broke bones in the guy's neck, and they told him if ever he gets hit in the neck again, he will be paralyzed. And the man became a male cheerleader. True story. So that gives you an idea about Charles Haley and his desire to knock somebody out in practice. So you know what it meant in a game. He says Jerry Jones, my Cowboy family, okay, you're going live now. Well, thank you for advertising on my channel. I really appreciate that. Has built a stadium for a bunch of losers.
Amen to that.
Well,
It's true. It's true.
Well, considering we haven't won any more Super Bowls since Charles Haley was there, it's kind of hard to disagree with him. Because we've got all the pomp and circumstance. We've got all the parties. We got the greatest stadium in the world. You want to get your eat on? You want to watch 1,800 of the TVs that are in the stadium?
You got more women bathrooms than that. You got more women.
You can do that. You want to watch a Super Bowl in your stadium? You want to see your team in the playoffs winning? Haven't seen too much of that. In fact, we have a better road record than at home. Let me say that again. We play better on the road than we do at home. I think Jobu needs a refill on that one. So in a way, you could say, yeah, Jerry Jones, you have built a house for losing. If somebody can tell me something different or disagree or have an argument with that, please, by all means, disagree with it. Our record in Texas Stadium it's right around 500. We played better this year on the road than we did at home. You know, we had those back-to-back games that we lost, scoring 30 points or more. Something has never happened with the Dallas Cowboys. Let me say that again. We had 2 games back-to-back where we scored 30-plus points at home and lost them back-to-back. So it's kind of hard to argue with Charles on that one. Yeah, 0 home field advantage. Like I said, you have a ball when you go to the stadium. We went down, we did the tailgate. We had about 80 of you fans that showed up. We had a ball, we had chicken wings. We had the Bang Bang sliders. We had burgers. We had 20 gallons of Mojo Punch. We had a ball until kickoff, where we got our ass handed to us by the Eagles. So, great place to watch the game, but no wins. Personally, I'm getting kind of tired of going to the Super Bowl and seeing other teams go. It's the offseason right now, and I'm hoping that seeing the Eagles win a Super Bowl, and by the way, Eagles, take it down a notch, guys. You're not the greatest thing since sliced bread, okay? You finally got a ring. Congratulations. Congratulations. You guys did a great job this year, but it's only your first one. And don't come back at me and say, oh, well, you haven't won anything in 20-some years, but we've got 3 world championships and a Super Bowl ring. What? So wait. You tell me I can't talk about those 5 Super Bowl championships that I have, but you're going to go back to before I was born and talk about world championships when there was only 10 teams, that you got 3 of them, even though the Browns got 8 and the Lions got 4? Get out of here with that stuff, man. Get out of here. Calm yourself down, okay? Calm yourself down. It took you 52 years before you won that first Super Bowl. Now, you go back next year, win another one, hey, talk all you want. But calm down, take it down a notch, man, and stop tearing up your own city. And leave the horses alone. So we'll see what happens when you get the big boy schedule next year, when people start picking you apart in free agency and taking some of your coaches, and you have that target on your back. We'll see what happens. See if you have a Super Bowl hangover or not. We'll see how good you really are.
One of their coaches signed with the Colts. They were here on the radio.
Yep, see, there you go.
As head coach. I forget which one.
Dave, I'm not hating. No. You know what? What's so funny? Okay, yeah, you've already lost one of your coaches to the Colts now.
As head
okay.
coach.
Right. So Dave, listen.
I think it was defense.
When you come into my house and talk trash to me, I'm going to talk it right back. And believe me, I have been getting the Eagle fans up here 24/7. talking about how good they are and how much our Cowboys suck. And it's amazing because last year when you guys were in the basement, I didn't see any of you. So come on, man. I'm just telling you, Eagle fans, I'm not hating. I gave you props. I said, congratulations on finally winning the Super Bowl after 52 years. Okay? I said, congratulations. What more do you want me to say? But I just said, take it easy, man. Don't burn yourself out. Just got in. Can anybody update you? Well, Evan Lopez, thanks for joining us. Charles Haley has gone off on the Dallas Cowboys. He basically said Jerry Jones has built a stadium for losers, and I find it hard to disagree with that. He's also talked about Chaco and said that Taco has let me answer Ari here real quick. He's also talked about Chaco and said Taco basically doesn't have a great football IQ and needs a bunch of work, which we all know. But he didn't say to give up on the guy. Tonight, guys, let me interrupt this for just a second here. We're going to end up having a special guest tonight. As soon as I get this sent. I am very, very proud to say that Jobu Sports Report, we got the new studio, the new setup here and everything else. We're working on taking this to another level because of your guys' support. Fortunately, we're able to have done the studio because of the donations and stuff. And I did not get everything set up for doing a drawing tonight and all that because I've got a whole bunch of super chats that I've got to get back to and get in here to get caught up and stuff. But we will get back to doing that next week. I've got to get something framed, something really good and all that. Because of your guys' support, we got the new mixer and the computer system and everything else, and we're able to actually set this up as a really much, much better studio. And you're going to see some more and more changes with this. But tonight at 9:30, we actually have Ari from ESPN Radio in San Antonio is going to be joining us and beginning to talk about the Dallas Cowboys and things like that. And we're going to be doing more and more interviews with different YouTubers as well as hopefully some different players and things like that. So we're trying to step this up. ESPN, forgive me, Ari, is kind of coming into my backyard as far as doing the internet and everything else and YouTube and stuff. So I'm going to try and work my way into their backyard a little bit, and we're going to try and turn this into a little bit of a sports center, if you know what I mean. So Ari will be joining us at 9:30, and I'm proud to say that he's a great guy. Just started talking with him, and we're going to be doing some things together. So that's going to be really cool. Now, we are literally 5 weeks away from free agency. Basically, another week, teams can start declaring franchise tags. So we're going to have to see, are we going to have to tag DeMarcus Lawrence, or are we going to be able to work out a long-term deal? In my mind, the best thing for the team is to work out a long-term deal. Reason being is that franchise tag is going to be about $16 million. We have $19 million right now in the cap. Could they get some more money? They could restructure some contracts and get some more money and everything else. But that has been the problem with our Dallas Cowboys. Our Cowboys have restructured so many contracts over the years that sooner or later you got to pay them. And that's why Tony Romo wasn't on the team last year, but we still paid him $10.5 million on the cap. And he's not on the team this year, and we're paying him another $9 million. So you look at a guy like Tyron Smith, who right now, his cap number is $17.5 million because we've restructured his contract over and over again. We have to get away from doing that. So in my mind, the best thing is you end up signing DeMarcus Lawrence to a long-term contract, and you can backload some of that money so you could end up having, say, a $5 or $6 million cap hit for this year. And and as much as people say you're crazy, Dez Bryant, sorry, if he's not willing to take a pay cut, you're going to end up needing to cut him. Some more news, Mr. Michael?
But remember what happened when he was hurt? Dak Prescott's rookie year.
Well, Michael brought up the fact that
His rookie year.
Dak Prescott's rookie year, when Des Bryant was out the first half of the season, how well the team clicked on offense without him. And his mind is, maybe we're better off without Des Bryant. I know we're better off not having a $16.5 million cap hit when we look at the needs of the team. Because you keep Des Bryant here, then that means some backup guys, or role-playing guys you can't put on the team. And if you look at our team, in my mind, our biggest failure was the lack of depth. We had great frontline guys, but not everybody makes it through the season. And if you don't have somebody who can play better than a Chaz Green for Tyron Smith, and he give up 8 sacks on your quarterback, you ain't going to win many games. And if there's anything else that the Cowboys should take away from last year, besides keeping Zeke Elliott out of the limelight, is we need depth. We can't have a Sean Lee go out, and the only linebacker that we have is Jalen Smith on one leg. You can't have a Chaz Green going in for Tyron Smith as your swing guard and tackle that's giving up those kind of plays. One of those games, had that been the other way, we might have been in the playoffs. So 1 or 2 guys that are quality backups that could fill in make all the difference in the world. It's just a fact of the matter. Film predictions. Well, my thoughts on Switzer, here's,
He just went to get surgery all season.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of guys that are getting off-season surgery, Michael. Here's the thing in my mind with Switzer. It's possible that Cole Beasley ends up getting cut or released, and they look at Ryan Switzer as his replacement. And I know that sounds crazy, but here's the thing. It's all a numbers game. You got to realize you got $170+ million that you have to field a team. And it's amazing when you look at a team like New England, who is never cash-strapped, is always good, and at least every other year is in the Super Bowl. And why is that? Because they don't have a lot of big-name salaries that are up here. They, where they've got 10 great guys. What they've got is about 30 really good guys and a couple of stars that are in there. So if I lose this player, it's okay, because the guy who's replacing him is just as good or damn near close. There's not a big drop-off. And that's where a lot of teams, you look at the Redskins. Redskins always are big players in free agency. Yet every year, not that good. So when you look at Cole Beasley, and you say, okay, Cole Beasley, if I cut him, I could save about $3.5 million. Ryan Switzer is not that far off. When you look at, say, Tyrone Crawford, who had 5 sacks, you got Taco Charlton. Tyrone Crawford, $9.5 million. Taco Charlton, $1.5 million. So with the money that I saved letting go of Tyrone Crawford, that $8.5 million, can I get a player or two depth-wise? And that's the game that we have to start playing and looking at. And it's not a matter of Des Bryant. Love Des Bryant. I love throwing up love his passion on the field. When he gets out there and gets into people's faces and everything else, when he gets touched, I love it. But you can't run a football team with your heart. It's a business. And you only have X amount of money to pay everybody. So Des Bryant, $16.5 million, we're making a June 1st cut. Get $12.5 million. I can sign Zach Martin to a long-term deal after June 1st. I can sign my rookies. And maybe I get a free agent. Or I keep Des Bryant. Which one sounds better in your mind? And if you can explain it to me where I'm wrong, I would love to hear it. Orlando Scandrick's going to probably be another one that'll be a cap hit. Because when you look at some of the younger guys that we've ended up bringing in, Lewis, Woozy, and I know I mispronounce it, but I'm a name butcher. That's what I do, so forgive me. You look at those guys and say, okay, that's places I can save money and maybe bring in a veteran. Now, the only problem with the Cowboys is they went from one extreme to the other. We looked at getting Brandon Carr, $55 million contract. We did Greg Hardy, another big contract, $9 million for 1 year. And we kind of got burned on those. So then they've gone to them and said, you know what? We're not spending a lot of money in free agency. We're going to go bargain basement shopping. We're going to get a DeMontre Moore. We're going to get a Nolan Carroll, guys that are going to be about $1.5 million, $2.5 million, and so on. But they haven't really helped the team. And maybe if you start looking at those guys, say 2 or 3 guys right there where you're talking about $6 million, maybe you could have gotten an impact player with that same amount of money that would have been better. Shallow, how are you saying that there's not a better receiver out there to replace Dez between the draft and free agency? I'm sorry, his numbers, he's not exactly a top 10 wide receiver anymore. Hitchens is probably going to be gone too, free agency. So that's where you have to start looking at some other guys. Now, a guy that, again, I'm going to get told I'm an idiot, and it's not the first time I've been told that I'm an idiot. But last year, my guy was Calais Campbell. Oh, God. I said Calais Campbell is the type of guy that we could really use on the team on the pass rush. And I know everybody said he's old, he's a defensive tackle, he only gets 6 or 7 sacks a season, blah, 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 blah. I believe he was actually a defensive player of the year candidate, if I do remember. But there's guys out there. Man. There's guys out there that you may not think they're going to be doing that good, but are actually really good. Demario Davis was one of those guys that went to Cleveland, and for whatever reason, Cleveland just kills guys' careers. Literally was just looked almost like a bust after coming from the Jets to Cleveland, looking like his career was over, but went back to the Jets and ended up leading the NFL in solo tackles with 98 and had 137 linebackers. Stayed healthy. You need a guy like that as far as a linebacker goes, because our linebackers did not stay healthy. The only guy that stayed healthy last year, which is hard to believe, was Jalen Smith. And had we had linebackers that have stayed healthy, if Sean Lee could have stayed healthy, and I'm not sure he's going to be able to stay healthy, he's going to miss time. You've got to have some quality linebackers there with you. I don't care how good your pass rush is. If you don't have some linebackers to fill in, it's not going to work. But it is what it is. And we're going to go ahead and give Ari a call. Hopefully I have everything hooked up right, because, guys, I am technology challenged. Ari, can you hear me? Ari? Okay. Apparently I'm not the only one technology challenged.
Can I hear you?
Can you hear me? I can hear you. Can you hear me, Ari?
I can't really hear you, but maybe I can read your lips, dude.
You can't hear me? Oh, my goodness. Okay, hold on.
It's probably my issue.
Okay, let me go through. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, Ari, welcome to the show, everybody. Ari, I'm going to mispronounce your name because I'm a name butcher.
Okay.
Ari Tompkin? Tempkin, sorry. Guys, I screw up with names. Forgive me on that.
You got my first name right, and that's usually what most people mess up.
Yeah, okay. Well, Ari, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well, Mark, I appreciate you having me on. I love your show. I've been watching it now since it started tonight, and I've been watching you and some of the videos you've been doing. They're fantastic. I just want to say what up to Cowboy Joe Boo. And, I'm a big fan of yours, Mark, so I appreciate you having me on. I host a talk show in San Antonio. It's The Hard Line on ESPN San Antonio, 11 to 2. And we talk a lot of Cowboys because San Antonio, as Jerry Jones likes to always talk about, is as big of a market, if not a bigger market for the Cowboys than Dallas is. Of course, he's referring not to Dallas-Fort Worth, but just Dallas. Yeah. But still, it's a huge market for Jerry and the Cowboys, and it's probably 8-1 Cowboys to Texans fans in the city. So it's a lot of Cowboys talk. And I cover them every year at Oxnard, so it's always fun to see that team. And I mean, I agree with a lot of your commenters, and I'm very anti-Jason Garrett. I think he's just
That was
he's
going to
just
be
like
my
most
first.
other head coaches.
That was going to be my first question to you. Which side of the fence are you with Jason Garrett? And apparently, you're on the same side I am.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think he's like most coaches in the NFL, which is, just conservative enough to keep their jobs for a long period of time, but, not outside of the box thinkers enough to put their teams over the top. And I think, when people talk about conservative approaches, it's not just about going for it on fourth down. It's not just about, kicking field goals and scoring touchdowns or those kinds of things. It's a mentality. It's the way you call plays. It's how you devise schemes. It's, risk taking at an ultimate level. And I think there's just so much conservatism in the NFL and head coaching that most of the majority of the head coaches in the NFL are like Jason Garrett, which is they're average enough to keep their jobs, to maintain employment, status, but not outside the box thinkers enough to push their team over the top. And this team just makes excuses every single year.
That's what drives me crazy, Ari. Oh my God. I mean, it's like, okay, we lost Tony Romo. It's okay that we only won one game without him. And it's like, how is that acceptable?
Right.
We had Charles Haley was talking about that Jerry Jones has built a house for losers. And I'll be honest with you, when we look at this season, we're still talking about, well, we lost Zeke Elliott, so, it's okay. We'll do better next year. Oh, we lost Tyron Smith. But I'm sitting here looking at the Eagles. They lost their starting quarterback. They lost Jason Peters. They lost Hicks. You didn't hear them making excuses. They had the next guy up. One of our slogans, next man up. Apparently our next man up is not that good.
Here's something that's interesting that I've always thought about, Mark. Being in San Antonio, I covered the Spurs. And, the Spurs, when they lost the championship in 2013 with that Ray Allen shot,
yeah.
In 2014, they were on a mission to win the championship. And it started with training camp. And they watched the finals from the previous year. And they looked. And basically what Pop said at the time was, look, I wanted to make sure that everybody that's on this team understands that we didn't lose this because the basketball gods got us. We lost this because we didn't get this rebound, or we didn't, box out of this free throw.
Yeah.
I think in sports there's this machismo of, not wanting to dwell on the past failures. And maybe it's not even just sports, it's just guys in general. That we just don't like to look and dwell on our past failures. We only like to look ahead.
Yeah.
So the reason I bring all that up is because when Dez catch, non-catch happens, this is a great example.
Yeah.
The approach of the Cowboys after that Packers game was not to look and dwell on what they did wrong, what issues that were the reasons for why they lost that Green Bay game. They lost the game to the Packers not because of the Dez catch, non-catch. They lost it because they couldn't get after Aaron Rodgers, who was hobbled. That was the problem. They could not get after him, and he was hurt in that game. But yet all they did was talk about, well, we moved on, we moved past it. And it's like, well, that's what every coach, that's what every organization says. And yet when you look at quality organizations like the Spurs as an example, it's like they dwelled in the past, they fixed it, and they moved on. All Jason Garrett does is talk about fixing things and moving on, but
But it's the same mistakes, though.
Moves on.
You can look at the same mistakes that we made 6-7 years ago. We're still making the same ones. I mean, you still have to learn. It's Aaron frickin' Rodgers. You don't leave time on the clock. Okay? Even had Dez caught that pass, and that's where everybody says, oh, well, had he caught the pass, it's like, hold on. Why are we passing and going for it all when it's 4th and 1? We're going to leave a lot of time on the clock. And then everybody says, oh, well, Tony Romo changed the play. Well, then you're the coach that should be in the guy's face saying, look, Tony, we want to score. We want to burn the clock and not give any time to Aaron Rodgers. So don't get me as, oh, it's Tony Romo. No, are you the coach or are you not the coach? And is he being hamstrung by Jerry Jones, which is a possibility. But I just don't see after 7 years that this is going to be the magical year for Jason Garrett. I just don't see it.
I think Jerry just wants it really badly. And Mark, you and I were talking about this before. But the Cowboys overcorrected. I mean, forever.
Oh. Yeah.
After the Super Bowl era, they were running coaches out in a couple of years, and they were oversigning players. They were horrible in free agency, so they left a ton of dead money on their cap. These were issues with the Cowboys. They've overcorrected. Now they don't spend any money. They spend no money shoring up holes in free agency, and they've held on to a coach that's average at best. I mean, his record since being the Cowboys head coach is 500. He's a few games
It
over
is.
500 from the year he took over Wade Phillips, but he's a 500 head coach. He is what he is. And they don't spend any money in free agency. You were talking about DeMario Davis earlier and guys they can go out and get in free agency. It's like we haven't seen this team the last 2 off seasons address any of their needs in free agency. They just do it in the draft. They insist upon themselves the players that they've scouted and developed, and then those guys step in and they're not as good.
I agree.
The Cowboys overrate their own players, and then they don't go out and spend money shoring up holes in free agency. They need to go out and get a left tackle to replace Tyron Smith or figure out what they can do if Tyron Smith's not going to be healthy. They need to go out and shore up their linebacking core. You just can't be married to Tyron Smith at this stage of his career with the back issues he has. You can't be married to Sean Lee anymore.
Yeah, well, here's the bad thing, and again, that we've ended up doing for so many years is using his contract as a piggy bank. So now it's a $17.5 million hit, and that's where a lot of people keep saying, oh, well, Dez Bryant, you got to keep Dez. We don't have another guy to replace him. But when you start looking at, and I keep trying to say, you can't look at football with your heart, because if you do, you're never going to win. You can't pay Dez Bryant $16.5 and Tyron Smith $17.5 and think that you're going to be able to field a complete team. Because
think about it like this too. The Cowboys, the clock is ticking, guys. I mean,
yeah.
We just saw Jimmy Garoppolo get the highest paid contract in NFL history as a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? Kirk Cousins in a couple of months, he's gonna surpass him, and he's gonna become the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, which means
Dak Prescott
has a rebound season next year. Well, the clock is ticking with Zeke and with Dak.
Right, but you're gonna have to pay him.
The amount of time they have to pay these guys what they're paying them. I mean, they're paying Dak nothing.
Yeah.
Most quarterbacks are gonna take up
$600,000.
You've got backup quarterbacks that are making twice of what he's making.
It's incredible. Most quarterbacks take up 40 to 50% of the salary cap. The Cowboys quarterbacks taking up 1% of their salary cap right now.
Right.
So the fact is, and that's what made the Seahawks so successful over the period when Russell Wilson was
you
young,
hit the nail on the head.
They were paying him nothing. So the clock is ticking for the Cowboys to have some success while they don't have to pay Dak Prescott,
right,
the highest paid quarterback money, because that's what he's going to end up getting, because every quarterback that's contracted up will eventually become the highest paid player in the history of the NFL.
Right. And again, you're 100% right on that one. And everybody keeps saying we need to get rid of Dak and try and sign a Kirk Cousins. And I'm kind of like, you do realize that Dak Prescott has beat Kirk Cousins 4 times in a row, right? In here, it's just like, it's just for whatever reason, people just hate Dak Prescott for whatever, even though.
Well, maybe there's a Romo thing there, which I kind of understand. But I'll say this about Dak.
It's funny though, that you bring up Tony Romo, because the same people that used to want to run Tony Romo out are now swearing that he is a god and we need him back. So it's kind of like maybe some of these fans, we just can't keep happy in here, no matter what we do.
And I think with Dak, I mean, fans are right to question if Dak's the guy. I think that's legit.
Yeah.
Two seasons, one where he was good, one where he wasn't. But I don't think we have enough information to know one way or the other. I'll just say this: I think if you were to say, hey, which one do you think? What bet would you place? I'd place a bet on Dak being a pretty successful quarterback.
Well, see,
I think
a lot of that though, I still relate.
Can't be multifaceted.
See, a lot of that I still relate back to the coaching, because in Jason Garrett's tenure, you haven't seen him progress any quarterback. Tony Romo had his skills originally from Sean Payton, and so everybody else that's come through there, you're telling me that you had Brandon Wheaton. I know Brandon Wheaton wasn't exactly the best quarterback stock, but you had him on your roster for a year and a half and you couldn't coach him to win one game? So is the question of Dak regressing a problem in he's not getting taught well? Is it a process of the offense is pretty much predictable and teams ended up basically figuring out, hey, if we go ahead and do a run blitz, if we make Zeke Elliott have to make a move in the backfield as opposed to getting mauled by that big offensive line and then put it on Dak Prescott with a predictable offense, we can shut things down. So that's the big question that I have is it time to move on for the sake of change just to bring in something else, a different look? The book is out on Jason Garrett. Everybody knows exactly what they're going to do in the offense. There's no creativity at all.
Well, I think, and I saw somebody was writing about this, about Doug Peterson, and they were basically talking about how good Doug Peterson is at, taking the talent that he has and then fitting his schemes around that talent.
Amen.
And Whedon is a great example, man. Whedon is a fantastic example because if you remember the year of Whedon, he was released by the Cowboys and then signed by the Houston Texans.
And a week and a half later, he's winning a game for the Texans. It's kind of like, wait a minute.
Playoff.
Yeah, how in the world is it that you had him for a year and a half, and you couldn't get him to do squat. And realizing that his problem is
one win.
he cannot go to the left. He cannot throw to the left, but yet you can't continue to try and make him go to the left and throw interception after interception. You know, he was not Tony Romo, but they treated him like he was.
And that's the point here, is Bill O'Brien brought him in and was like, hey, let's look at what you did to Oklahoma State. Let's duplicate that. And they won a game.
That's
Brandon Whedon's not Joe Montana, but, I mean, they won a game with Brandon Whedon as their quarterback because they did some simple play action, zone read stuff.
Yeah.
You're right. When Whedon was the starting quarterback of the Cowboys, they were expecting him to run the Romo offense. And this goes back to, like, know who you have and change your schemes. It's not just about, being conservative and not going for it on fourth down. It's about, fitting your schemes to fit the right players.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that Jason Garrett hasn't really proven an ability to do. He's really able to condescend to the media and talk like he knows what he's talking about, but most of the time it sounds like he's talking out of his ass.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, when you watch Jason Garrett, pull up the last two Green Bay Packers games, the playoffs and when we lost during the season. And I swear they're identical. You cannot tell which is which because they're all exactly the same thing. He's leaning on the podium. We'll have to look at the film and then we'll get.
No, totally. We fixed it. We're moving on. It's like all he does is address things, fix them, and move on. He never seems to fix anything.
Right, and it's always a slogan. Okay, the one that killed me this past season was after the Atlanta game when clearly we just got eaten by Chaz Green, and Dak was just beat ruthlessly. Had it been Tony Romo, he might be in a coffin right now.
Oh yeah, big time.
And the idea, the person said, did you consider taking Dak Prescott out when it looked like you had no chance? And it was like, oh, no, we played for 60. What? You're going to be playing without a quarterback next week if you keep this crap up. Are you kidding me? There's a time to cut bait and, just say, okay, we're done. It's just like, the thing with me is, you have good game plans. You go in there, okay, you start out the first half, but we cannot adjust in second halves. You look at a guy like Pete Carroll, I believe he's 47-0 when he's had a a second half lead of 4 points or more at halftime. I think Jason Garrett with a halftime lead is like, I want to say 8 out of 19.
He does clap a lot, though. A lot of clapping. Just really good clapping. Really good clapping, though. I mean, he looks great clapping, does he not? He went to Princeton. I don't know if you know that. He went to Princeton. It's pretty impressive, right?
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, this should not be pile on Jason Garrett night because he did just lose his father, and prayers to his family and everything else. But it's just some of these records that we have as Dallas Cowboys. I mean, the fact that we lost to Green Bay when we were up 26-3. How is that? You should have lost his job right then and there. And it wasn't to Aaron Rodgers. It was to Matt Flynn.
They lost 3 straight games by 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's where the season was lost. They lost 3 straight games by 3 touchdowns. And they were at one point a unstoppable force on offense. And now you remove one guy. I know that guy's really good, Zeke Elliott, but you can't tell me that's a 3-touchdown difference. I mean, that is an inability to change your game plan to the players you have. And it's not like the Zeke suspension should have caught them by surprise. It was coming all year.
But here's the reality, though, too. Quite frankly, Alfred Morris was picking up more yards per carry than Zeke was. But you failed to capitalize, saying, okay, he's picking up 4.8, 4.9 yards a carry. Let's try and run the ball. You continue to throw, especially in some of those games where Dez Bryant is just losing it. Let's move on. We know Jason Garrett is not the guy, and we know he's not going anywhere this year.
The issue is Cowboys fans are going to like this. He's probably going to go somewhere and be successful. But I think Cowboys fans have to live with the fact that he just doesn't seem to fit with what they're doing right now. And you're right, it's $16 million against the cap.
You can't.
But that's money that needs to be allocated to spend to shore up their offensive line, to figure out what they need to do.
I mean, he's almost 10% of your cap number. And if you want to go and say, I'm not saying that he's not a good player, and I'm not saying that he can't be, a better player than he was this year, but you still have to have enough guys on this team. And if you have a Dez Bryant, then that means you got to have Nolan Carrolls and Demontre Moores on your team that may have to play a role. And you can't do that.
The last thing I'll say about Dez, too, is, we, again, with the excuses with this team, I mean, he's getting double covered and, he's never open. And it's like, does Antonio Brown complain about that? Do people know about Antonio Brown? But he doesn't seem to complain about, double teams. I mean, the best receivers in the game get open. They find ways to get yardage, and the ones that don't are the ones that talk about it. And look, Dez has been really good.
You brought the point up that we make excuses. You know, I'm not catching the ball because I'm getting double teamed. You know, we didn't win the game because we lost Zeke Elliott, and it's time to stop making excuses and start making changes. But you know, Jerry owns the team, and you know he's making more money hand over fist. We're all still going to the games and all that. So, unfortunately, give me something good because I was about to grab the bottle here because I'm about to jump off the bridge. You know.
What are you drinking there, brother?
Oh, Joe Boo. I'm stealing Joe Boo's rum. Okay.
So, you know, Will McClay has been a hot, you know, commodity throughout the NFL, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet he doesn't. So he was rumored to be interviewing with the Houston Texans to be their GM.
Mm-hmm.
He did not interview for that job.
Thank God, because we've been lost without him.
Will McClay did not interview for the Houston Texans general manager job. I don't know how much power he has in Dallas. I don't know what his role is exactly. But for the guy to not even interview, that tells you that he has a lot of power. So the idea that Jerry has completely centralized all power, that's gone. I think that has changed. I think Steven has a ton of power.
Yeah.
I think Will McClay has a ton of power. Unfortunately, I think Jason Garrett has a ton of power too. But I do think the positive here is Jerry does not have absolute power. He does, and I know this because I talk to Steven every summer, he does get the ultimate say in the last decision.
Mm-hmm.
But Steven is very important. Otherwise, they would have drafted Johnny Manziel and not Zach Barton.
Oh, amen.
And for Will McClay to not even interview for these other jobs, that gives you a pretty good indicator that he's got a lot of power. Because it's not just about money. It's not just about money, guys.
You know, well, when you look at, since he's been there, it seems like our draft stabilized. We stopped with the wheeling and dealing up and down, you know, 2 number ones for Morris Claiborne and things like that. Once he started going through, you started oh man, that was, for me, you never trade up. It's just you're risking too much because you might only miss on that one, but that should have been another productive player. Take a look at the Washington Redskins giving up what they did for RG3. It set that team back. They were fortunate enough to have Kirk Cousins, but too stupid to sign him years ago. But I digress. But Will McClay has actually found more Pro Bowl players. We have drafted more Pro Bowl players than anybody else since 2010. The problem has not been getting the players on the field. The problem is using the players correctly. You know, when you look at a New England and they win the Super Bowl and they've only got 3 or 4 Pro Bowl guys, and here it is, we've got 9 or 10, and we're, you know, losing the first game in the playoffs, it kind of makes you scratch your head and say, what's going on here? But it's a matter of having that whole team completely there. But I've always thought that, you know, Jerry Jones is still going to be Jerry Jones. He's over here talking out the side of his neck, you know, being Jerry, and everybody's chasing him.
He's basically rowdy at this point.
Right. And then the real decisions and the real work is over here with Stephen Jones. And I believe Stephen Jones is getting more and more of that power. Now, the big thing that I'm hoping and praying is that Chris Richards, that he is basically the defensive coordinator in waiting. And I'm hoping that he starts bringing some of that edginess with that defensive backfield. I'm almost calling it the Legion of Doom 2.
Well, you know, look, I don't know how much power Rod Marinelli's going to have this year, but that's just not his MO to have press corners, physical corners. And I just don't get that in today's NFL. I mean, if you watch consistently, he's got guys 5, 10 yards.
It drove me crazy because we're giving up 8-yard cushions on guys, and they're just doing 5-yard outs, and they never have a chance to stop them.
That's that cover 2, you know, bend, don't break BS that, you know, is kind of obsolete in today's NFL in many ways. So I agree. You know, I thought Matt Eberflus, who knows what's going to happen with him, obviously.
Oh, he got screwed. Boy, did he get screwed by Josh McDaniels.
Yeah, and I don't know if Frank Reich is going to keep him in Indy, but that's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I thought he would have been perfect for I think what the Cowboys wanted to do is they wanted to do with Marinelli what they did with Monty Kiffin a few years ago, which was like elevate him to like this. Hey, you can just sit up in the booth and do nothing.
But the thing with Rod that I love, he is able to basically take nobodies on that defensive line and turn them into productive players. You look at George Selby, who basically was at Tampa Bay, Atlanta, Jackson, you know, had 3 sacks in 4 years, turn him into an 8-sack guy. He got paid with the Giants, but then was nothing else.
Think of a guy like Ernie Sims.
Yeah.
They picked him up off the street when
Right.
they had major linebacking issues. He came in and became a productive player for them. I mean, you're right. There are guys.
I would love to see
on the
him just
street.
working with the defensive line. But, start getting Chris Richards in there. Start trying to instill a little bit of that edginess. And I believe the biggest problem, and Charles Haley touched on this as well. See, Charles was a nut. Charles put as much fear on his teammates as he did the other team. You were afraid to screw up and have to deal with Charles, because when you lost with Charles, you stole something from him. And you need a guy on your defense that gets into your face and holds you guys accountable. Because too many times, it drives me freaking crazy with Jason Garrett. You'll see a guy have a boneheaded 15-yard penalty, and they just come off the sideline, okay, no problem. Why aren't you holding this guy responsible? To me, you're doing the clap. Jason Garrett, to me, is like a perfect Little League coach. Good job, Johnny. We'll get him next time. Here's your participation trophy. Great job. No. Get into these guys' face. When you screw up, hold them accountable for it. And the same thing on the defense. Sean Lee is an incredible player, but Sean Lee is not a vocal guy. He leads by example. But you need a guy with a little bit of edge that's out there to put a foot in guys' ass and to motivate them. And we don't really have that guy.
It might be Jalen Smith. The problem is, Jalen Smith needs to be, your leader, that kind of guy needs to be one of the best players of the team.
Yeah.
Especially on the defense. And, I think Jalen Smith wasn't great this year, but I think the expectations for him were far too high, that he should have a better second season. But he's the kind of guy that has that vocal leader DNA in him.
Yes, he does.
I think he could be.
And he's got the instinct
to
to
take a major step forward.
Well, the question will be is it as good as it's going to get with his foot? He's saying, the foot, of course, is 100% healed and all that, but we all say, when you're playing football, you say I'm 100% and, you're barely walking. But, you love his instincts. It's just that he couldn't come to me with force with that foot, and he could not cut and plant and move.
He still has nerve. He still doesn't have full nerve regeneration. So I think, he says he's 100%, but he can't feel his foot.
Right.
He still has that. So as long as that's the case, he's not going to be able to go sideline to sideline like he's going to need to be a productive NFL linebacker.
Well, Marcelo says Charles Haley for head coach. Well, I got to tell you, that would be I guarantee you're going to have some people motivated and definitely would have a foot on their behind, because Charles would definitely do that one. But
the things that he said about Taco Charlton were on a radio station, by the way.
Yeah, was that on your radio station? I know it was in San Antonio.
With,
yeah.
Jason Minix and Rob Thompson, who hosted the Blitz, which is our 4 to 7 show on ESPN San Antonio. But so Taco basically said that Charles Haley was a joke. Did you saw that?
Oh God, I didn't hear that part. Whoa.
So Taco responded and said Charles Haley's a joke, which is like, dude, Charles Haley's crazy, but he has like 100 Super Bowl rings, and he's one of the greatest pass rushers of all time. So Taco, you're a joke.
Yeah, get back to me when you have 101 sacks, and you can talk about him being a joke, okay? Because
like 8 rings or 10 rings, or whatever he has.
No, I did not hear that response from Taco. And see, and that unfortunately, that's the sad thing about where we are with the Cowboys, that there's such a big disconnect between greatness. We can look back and look at Roger Staubach. We can look back at Troy Aikman and stuff, but these guys that are playing, they don't have a clue. They weren't born when Charles Haley was winning Super Bowl rings. So, wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah, Taco, man, you just dropped a notch on me right there, buddy, when you went after Charles, because, wow.
Yeah, no, it's like Taco. He's crazy. Charles Haley's a crazy person. Don't get me wrong, but he's not. Don't call him a joke, man. He's one of the greatest of all time. He's got a gold jacket for a reason, right?
Ari, I could tell you some stories about Charles. I'm serious. I could tell you some, and when they say he's crazy, yeah, he's crazy. I'm glad he's on some medication. But again, he's a guy you want in your huddle. You don't want to play against him.
Totally.
But you want him in your huddle right there and going to war with him. So
Irvin's another guy that's a great leader. Michael Irvin is one of the greatest leaders of all time.
Yeah.
They just don't have a guy like that. You're right. They don't.
They really don't. Who on the team do you see? I don't see anybody on our team other than Des Bryant.
Truthfully, I think Zeke is one of their big leaders, which could be a problem for them. I think a lot of guys follow him, and he's so good that it's hard for them not to. But I think there's a give and take there between Dak and Zeke. as far as who needs to be the leader versus who is the leader.
Yeah, well, this is the time of year I call GMs hold their breath because the players don't have contact with the team. It's the off season, and this is where you see more arrests and more problems. We saw Zeke Elliott with the nightclub in Ohio and Booby Gate and everything else. So this is just kind of like say a prayer and hope that your guys don't get in trouble. We already saw Reuben Foster, a guy who a lot of people wish that we had drafted instead of Taco. I'm glad we didn't get that one. But in your mind, we only have a couple minutes left here. With this being the off season, what in your mind is the one thing that the Cowboys must do to turn the season around next year?
It's a great question. They need to shore up their offensive line. I think they don't have to be great on defense. They have to be adequate on defense. So they just have, if they're going to be adequate on defense, they have to be great on offense. And if they're going to be great on offense, they can't have the holes they had on their offensive line. And, Tyron Smith, it's unfortunate. He is unbelievably good. Tyron Smith is one of the best left tackles of all time, in my opinion. But he's not getting any, he's not getting any younger. His back is not holding up. He's got back issues. So you just have to expect moving forward, this is a guy that's not going to be at full health. I think Lyle Collins is fine at guard. I worry about.
Although he's had back problems this year too, as well.
Yeah, no. So he did. They had obviously problems at right tackle. So that is, Mark, the biggest offseason need for the Cowboys is for them to figure out how they can get back to being dominant on their offensive line.
Yeah, I agree. That's definitely key. But I think the defense has the potential to be a lot better. I think the biggest problem last year was the defensive backfield. For us to have as much turnover, I think the Cowboys got drunk on the Kool-Aid and figure, we draft so well, we can just draft guys and they're going to be starting and playing really well because, you end up with Dak Prescott, you end up with Zeke Elliott, you're going through all these guys. So it's just like, we'll go ahead and get 3 guys and we'll put them out there and they'll be great. But they couldn't stay healthy in the first part of the season and even get on the field. But you look at the potential, I'd like to see a little more of Xavier Woods out there. I'd still like to get a really lights out, edgy safety out there, maybe a veteran one. But I look at Awuzie, and I mispronounce that, but I'm a name butcher, guys. That's what I do. And, Kevon Frazier is another guy. Yeah. I look at those guys and say, okay, they got a little time under their belt. They're going to naturally be a little bit better next year. Right. So you've got the makings of a decent defensive backfield. Linebacker is going to be the bigger question. If Sean Lee can stay healthy, hey, great. If Smith's foot gets better, okay, you're all right, but you're still going to need somebody else. I think Hitchens is probably going to be gone as well. So, it'll be interesting to see what we do in free agency, if we just keep bargain basement shopping or if we decide they're going to try and get an impact player or two.
And I don't think people expected the losses of Ronald Leary and Doug Free would be as bad as they were for this team.
But those
were 2 humongous losses for this team. So I agree. Look, they definitely need their linebacker core to be shored up. I agree. I think they invested enough in their defensive backfield, especially, you mentioned Woods, Jordan Lewis, Awuzie, and now Byron Jones. And they've got talent in that backfield. So now it's about those guys getting that experience and getting better. So, the 2 position groups I would say that are of drastic need for this team moving into this offseason would be offensive line and then linebackers.
Okay. Cowboys X Factor, thanks a lot for the super chat. Ari, I'm going to give you the final word here tonight before we go ahead and sign off.
No, man, I appreciate you having me on. This has been a blast. I'm a huge fan of yours, so keep doing what you're doing, brother, and let's talk again soon.
And tell everybody where to find you on the radio station.
Oh, yeah, check it out. I'm on Twitter at RE Sports, ARI Sports, and make sure to check out The Hard Line every single weekday, 11 to 2, 11 p.m. to 2 p.m. Central Time. On 1250 ESPN San Antonio. You can stream us at ESPNSA.com.
All right, guys. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Sorry I didn't get to all the chats and stuff that are on here, but I appreciate all the comments and everything else. And we'll be doing it again on Friday night. And we have all kinds of stuff that is planned for this offseason. So, guys, I know you need your football fix. Don't worry. You'll get it right here. I'm Mark Holmes, and this is my man, Ari. And thank you guys for watching.